it cheaper than Thailand in some places. What was the biggest culture shock for you? Yo, what's up with it? It's the Bay-Bay's Kids of Travel blogging. We teach her in the English to the youths.
Pee-wee, the OG.
OG, I'll slap my F-O-O-T in your B-U-T.
I got my man Chris over here. We're gonna talk about some culture shocks that he's experienced. I gotta be honest, after being in East Asia for like a really long time, like on and off for like 8 years, this feels more familiar and more normal to me than any real culture shock. If anything, I almost feel kind of like more familiar here. But you came directly from the States to Istanbul to here, right?
Right, yeah.
So you had a whole different perception. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about some do's and don'ts. We'll walk from the student city to Baku, and we'll give you guys an opportunity to kind of see the surroundings while we touch on this subject. Right there, youngsters, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So we are chilling in Tirana, Albania. We are in Student City. We're almost back by the river. What is the river called, big homie?
The Lana River, L-A-N-A.
The Lana River. So there's a place in northern Thailand called Chiang Mai, and that's Lana culture. It's spelled, I think it might be spelled the same way. Oh, sorry.
Oh, we lost the hat.
Lost the hat. So I walked by and I hit a branch. This was the gelato place we had in the last video, pretty bomb. I got generally good feelings so far. Like I said, it's very familiar. It doesn't feel as different as East Asia does. After being in places like China, Nepal, Thailand, Cambodia.
Because all the white people.
Everybody's white, that's a little different. That is a little bit different.
So when we talk about culture shock, this is the least diverse country, probably one of the least diverse countries.
I mean, but
when it comes to white people.
But they look different from each other.
A little bit, very little.
You can see some people look a little more Italian, and then some people seem to have a little more of like almost like a Greek or a Greek kind of look, Turkish look. Some people look a little bit Slavic.
There's a huge mix, but like as far as white people, it's white.
Right. So it's a majority white country. Now,
yeah.
The
overwhelmingly majority.
The minority would be what? The Roma people?
Which is probably very small.
So that would be a very small part of the population, and they're generally the people who I've seen so far. They're like going in the garbages and stuff, right?
And begging, yes.
And begging, okay. Look at these fruit markets, guys. This is what's interesting. You're in Europe, but in many ways it still feels like Southeast Asia. But look at these figs, man. Oh my God, these watermelons are like bigger than my head. Cherries here are really cheap, man. And when I was in Southeast Asia, cherries are crazy expensive. Like $14 to like $18 for like a kilo of cherries, I think, if I remember correctly. Here, they're like $2 for a kilo.
Yeah.
$2, $3.
I mean, but in America during the summertime, they go and sell their $1 a pound.
Well,
so that's $3.50 for a kilo, so it's actually cheaper in America during the summertime. It all depends. It all depends.
I haven't been around a place where cherries are that cheap, though, so that's a culture shock for me.
Well, you're not living.
No, you're right. So what was the biggest culture shock for you?
Here, 100% as a single man, the dating scene.
Really? Okay, tell us more, tell us more.
This guy's got some crazy music. The biggest thing I would say is the fact that the culture here is strong.
Right.
So family culture. And you know, this was a communist country 30 years ago, so dating was very different under communism. You know, I think the Western people don't really think of like, they think of communism, they think of like authoritarianism, like as far as like you can't do this, you can't do that, you know, food lines, stuff like that, but they don't really think of like, oh yeah, you really can't date. Like, you're not allowed to do certain things when it comes to like dating. So, this country's only really 30 years old when you think about it. So the people, it's a little different. It's a male-dominated country as far as like the men are looked at differently than the women. You know, everything's for the man. Like another prime example, I was at Salt, which is a sushi restaurant, a high-end sushi restaurant here, very expensive. And when they came to bring our drinks, and they were serving our sparkling water, they served me first instead of my girlfriend. And the guy looked at me and goes, since I'm an American, she's Albanian, he says, in our culture, we serve the men first.
Wow.
And we both, even her, sat there like as an Albanian until their basically a whole life, like, okay. But just to make it clear to me that
Right.
that's the way it is, you know?
Interesting.
So, and I'm eating at a sushi restaurant thinking I'm getting like this more of a Western experience, you
Right.
know, used to in America, but it was cool. It is what it is.
Right, right.
But yeah, the dating thing is interesting because the guys and girls here, the guys do a little more of a staring thing than go up there and kick game to the girl.
Okay.
You know, we're New Yorkers, we're three New Yorkers. We think of you approach the girl you like, or even in New York, girls approach the guys that they like.
Right,
There is
you
no,
start talking to them.
girls here don't really approach the guys.
Okay.
And the guys don't go kick game. Like they're not gonna go out there and make small talk or like, you know, pickup lines. So it's more of like a process. And even if you go ask a girl out here, it's gonna be a process of does she really wanna go out with you? Because first of all, if you're not living here, she thinks you're a tourist, you're gonna leave. And they're looking for more of a stability of like, well, why should I waste my time? If you're gonna leave, why waste my, you know, I'm not gonna waste my time, don't waste your time. So they want like stability, and they don't mind if it takes them a month before they go out with you. So you might ask them out, they might say yes, but it can take a month before you guys go out. And you go out, it might only be a coffee date. You know, coffee's very big here. You don't have to take them to a restaurant. They'll be happy with coffee, but they wanna get to know you. They wanna get to know if like you're for real. If they sense anything is shady about you, it's over, it's a wrap. Like you're not getting a second date, or even they won't even go out. If that month long, they're thinking, like, you know, what's he saying? Like, does his actions meet his words? Like, that's how really they think about it. And you're not meeting the family, like, because if you meet the family, then it's serious. Like, you're getting married. Like, they're actually putting their heads like, oh, you're like engaged, kind of thing. So, and you learn. And the way I learned was from girls that I met, because they would tell me like, oh, you know, you coming off this way was very aggressive. And I'm like, well, I'm American. It's like, yeah, well, we're Albanian. We're not used to that. You know, I've had girls tell me that if I come up and talk to a girl, they think it's strange because they're not used to that. They're like, oh, what's wrong with this weirdo? Because he's talking to me. And so when I had American subscribers of mine come visit me, they asked when we were going out one night, so if I go up to the girl and I kick her, you know, some funny humor pickup lines, is she gonna get it? And me and my Albanian friend Ender are like, nah, don't even bother. Don't waste your time, because they might misconstrue it as something else, or it just goes right over the head. So it's like, it's a cultural difference dating here. You know, it's something you got to know the insides about, like how the girl thinks.
All right, so we're cruising. We're getting a little bit into the city center. This is the Lana River, right?
Yeah.
So let's go peep the Lana River.
It runs east to west, I believe it is. It runs down from the mountains. Here's a great shot if you can get it. Look at the mountains right there. It's hard, I know with the wide angle it's hard, but it runs down from the mountains and then it goes back into, I think, the Tirana River, I think it actually goes into.
So this runs into the Tirana River, bro?
Yeah, it runs back into the Tirana River. So it just flows down from the mountains into the other river. It's pretty clean right now. It does get jammed up with garbage a little bit down that way, but it's pretty nice. I mean, I don't really see much upkeep in it, but during like the springtime or late fall, it's very nice. Go to the mountains, have snow on them, it's beautiful.
So guys, my first impressions, like I said, overwhelmingly positive. I would probably say one of the few things that's a little bit interesting for me in terms of the culture is it doesn't seem at first like people are that easy to read. Like you'll go in and they'll kind of be stone-faced a little bit, but then if you smile and say hello, instantly it becomes friendly.
Yeah, like I went to a restaurant here about a week and a half ago, and I was just checking this restaurant. I wanted to get the menu. It was another sushi place by where I live. And I walk in the place and there's nobody in the place except for the sushi chef and the waiter. So I walk in and they're just staring at me. And I was like, you open? And the guy's like, yes. And I said, okay, you have a menu? And he's just standing there looking at me. I go, menu. He said, oh, yes. Like there was no like, it was weird. Like he's almost like he's shocked that like I was there, you know?
Yeah, like I mean, like, but it seems like it melts away quickly, and like the warmth comes out. So
yeah. After that, he was normal. You know what I mean? It just like for the first minute, it was a little awkward. I don't know if he was shocked that I was a foreigner in a very local area, but I was going to a high-end, expensive sushi place. I don't know why it was so weird. My conversation with him, I was just like, menu, you know, like I had to pull it out of him.
Right. So we're getting into kind of what would be the city center. And like Homeboy was saying, he had a couple of strange experiences where it's a little bit awkward, but I felt like same. Like I walk into a place and they're kind of like looking at me, and then as soon as I smile, they smile. So
yeah, but it's still rare that happens as far as them looking a little awkward at you. For me, I didn't experience that much. But like I said, it was just a little odd. The guy was like, I had to keep pulling. Well, you would normally be like, I was the only person in there. You think he'd be like, oh, are you interested in sitting down for a meal or something? Or here's our menu. It was more like me had to keep asking. Like, are you open? Yeah. Menu? Yeah.
But that's the thing with travel, and that's what's so fun about it, is these quirky little cultural differences where people react in a way where you wouldn't expect them to. And that does make for, like, to me, like, it's just interesting. It makes for a little adventure, You have to kind of figure it out. It's like a puzzle. Like, how does this society work? Like, how does business done here? What's it like to deal with the people? What are people's attitudes? What are considered like polite in one place and maybe not polite in another?
Right.
So,
okay.
This is all part of the fun of traveling, and it makes you have an open mind. I mean, for me, I think the answer to all racism in the world is travel. I think if you just forced every kid to have a passport at 18 and pick up and go to a different country, I mean, we would solve a lot of problems around the world this way.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you're kind of like stuck in your way of living and you consume your media, you consume staying around the people that maybe like, older people, because older people hold on to a lot of these traditions or thoughts. Whereas you move out and you go to a different place and you're living in somebody else's culture, you kind of have to take in their culture and you learn different things. Now, like I said, it's completely white here, so how do they feel about certain things? I don't know, you have to ask them, like what's their differences. But living in Istanbul for 3 months where, that's a very different culture, and I'm a Westerner living in that culture, you start to, whereas the Western world looks at it differently, I appreciated a lot of things that people didn't like. Like I'm so used to mosques and the call to prayer.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time in Muslim countries. I gotta say, this is definitely a very pretty mosque. So guys, this is a really cool mosque. We're in the city center. We're gonna go walk through a little bit of the center and then back into Block Q. It's interesting because it's not really a Muslim country
anymore.
I
like, mean, it's still majority.
What is it, about 50-something% Muslim?
Yeah, I think it's 54 or 55%, whereas at one time it was like 74, 75%.
And now what compromises the other religion? Orthodox?
Well, Catholicism too, because everything's Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa church is here, Mother Teresa Airport. Tirana Airport is the Mother Teresa Airport.
The birthplace of Mother Teresa, right?
And yeah, in this region, don't forget, the Orthodox is the Greeks, it's so close to Greece. And then, the Turks were here for so long, so the Muslims.
The Ottomans were here forever, right?
Yeah.
A couple hundred years.
So you have all that kind of mix. With this country, because of communism.
Was it 1,000 years? How long were the Ottomans?
500 years, I think, 400 years.
Jeez.
But the thing was, because of communism, there was no religion. So they went from being a Muslim country to being nothing. So when they came out of communism, they said, okay, we have all these different religions here. We're not going to be any one religion. So there's no religion technically here, and they all get along. So and they really do.
Religious conflict's not really an issue here.
No. I mean, all right, we did have an issue here about 2 months ago. There was a stabbing at the mosque. There was 5 people stabbed at the mosque that's on Kavaya Street. It was like a Monday or Tuesday afternoon, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30 in the afternoon. An Albanian guy went in there, first day of Ramadan, I think it was, and he stabbed 5 people.
Oh my God.
Nobody died. He's alive too. Nobody killed him. But yeah, so that was like, there is stupid tension anywhere in the world.
Sure.
But everybody gets along great. Like if you go to Ruga Kavaya, in front of the mosque, especially on Fridays, there's people praying all over the place, especially at the end of Ramadan. During the end of Ramadan, the last day of Ramadan here, the majority of the city was closed. So even though it's not really a huge population, it's only about 54, 55%, the city observes it. So
it's a largely secular country that I guess you would say is probably traditionally Muslim, but not religiously practicing.
Yeah, I would say so.
So it has the influence from the Ottomans, but it also has the influence from the Greeks and the Romans and the Italians.
And I think probably since they're not so practicing, the Muslims here are probably a little more open to other things, as far as drinking, and they're more modern,
Secular, they're secular.
yeah, they're more modern, like say the Turks.
Right.
Where, especially like in Istanbul, you know, it's a very unique Muslim country where they're very forward, very modern.
Definitely think you can tell it's a secular country. Girls wearing, you know, short shorts, and it's less conservative than even in Vietnam, where a lot of people cover up and they'll wear like very like head to toe kind of clothing. It's very conservative, very Korea style. You know, here it definitely feels like just any other Western country. So I would say I wouldn't be concerned about it being conservative at all, at least here from what I'm seeing in Tirana. But again, you've spent more time in other parts of the country. Is it a little different when you get outside of the capital?
Well, like I said, I've only been to Durrës and I've only been to Vlora.
Okay.
And they're more like here, I would say.
So still kind of the same about.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have either cities or you're gonna have villages. And the more, of course, you get to villages, they're gonna be much more conservative.
Sure. So a culture shock would probably be there than in a cosmopolitan capital.
To this day, without a doubt, there's definitely a huge culture shock between, say, Tirana and any of the smaller cities. Just the conservatism of the way they think, the more traditional they are. But you're gonna have that anywhere.
Sure.
Even in America. You go from New York to Mississippi, you're gonna have some huge differences, or to Alabama. You know, you're gonna have huge differences.
See, a lot of times, a lot of the Westerners that come to places in Southeast Asia, they're the ones that are degenerate. A lot of times, their cultures, like the local cultures, the people who are from like Vietnam, Thailand, they are relatively conservative. Now, it's a Buddhist conservatism, so it's different, but it is still traditional, and people do still have a certain type of values. So, you know, a lot of times it's those foreigners that bring in this sex industry because the locals are poor, and they, you know, this is a way for the economy to benefit. Here you don't really see that. I have not seen hostess bars. I know there's probably strip clubs and things like that.
Yeah, there's strip clubs there.
But I don't see too many hostess bars. It seems like it's more of a cafe culture. So now we're coming up to something kind of interesting. Taptani Castle.
And this is the mall. It's a Taptani Mall.
Taptani Mall.
So we're walking down the strip. There's a lot of Western restaurants here, Western style restaurants. Like up top here is Opium, which is a sushi restaurant. I do not recommend this.
Okay.
One bit. Food is good, and it's one of the cheaper of the sushi places, but they are so slow to get your food that you just waste your time. And if they do the all you can eat to save some money, you'll be waiting for your food. When they close, you're like, where's our food? It's pointless. But there's other restaurants here. There's steak restaurants in here. I mean, you don't eat beef, but there's a good steak place in here. And then where we just passed, the castle over here has another good sushi place, other really good restaurants in there, pizza place in there, phenomenal. But like packed like this. Like, this is what it is on a Sunday night. And this is a walking street, so there's no cars. And this takes you back towards Block 2.
All right, Big Chris, so tell us a little bit about it, bro.
Septani was a ruling family here.
Okay, interesting.
And this castle, since it's historic, they wanted to make it useful, so they set up all these restaurants and everything aside, but they can easily be removed without damaging the actual history of the castle.
Oh, that's really
cool. So
cool.
It's always packed in here, as you can see, these restaurants, and it just wraps around, and there's restaurants everywhere. Like this place right here, Seren, is a traditional Albanian type. They do a lot of meats. But there's also one of these on the Daiti Mountain, the big, huge restaurants. So this guy is very famous here that owns Seren.
So we're cruising through the castle, you know. The only thing I wish we were doing was bumping some Wu-Tang while we're cruising through the castle, because you know how we do it. They're selling some silver. Maybe I'll go get some gold teeth made up. Basically, this is a nice setup. Like, I mean, I don't really know what to make of this. It's a little bit like what would you call this? Like a mall, kind of, like a walking street.
Yeah, it's a little tourist trap,
but built in the middle of a castle.
Yes. So it's a good way of making use of a castle that would just otherwise be a museum.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So they've put in a bunch of kind of boutique businesses, restaurants.
A lot of restaurants, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Okay, so tell us a little more, man. What was some of the biggest adjustments for you? Because like I said, for me, I'm still fresh. I don't really have an opinion yet.
Outside of the dating scene, so if you're a single guy, you're gonna have to deal with that. And if you're a single woman, I know a few American women here that have been here that's still actually in the country.
Hey.
And it's much more harder for them actually than for me as a male, because the men here just look to hook up with the foreign women. There's like no chance of like a relationship for a lot of them. So like they just give up. Like the foreign women just give up here at the idea of like dating, because nobody ever approaches them with, even like on Tinder or whatever, they never approach them with like an honest, like, because it's not how the men operate here.
Oh, that's interesting.
What do we got? Pitbull fight? What do we got?
Barking.
What do we got? Fight? It's always the little ones.
It's the little guy.
It's always the little ones.
The little guy. He smelled the big dog. But this is beautiful. This looks like something you might see in Italy or, Greece possibly. I mean, look at you got the stone facade and like these really beautiful windows. I mean, this is.
And it's just super chill. It's super chill. A lot of families, but then you have a lot of like couples out. Then you have groups of girls, groups of guys out. Everybody's just enjoying their time. It's a nice Sunday, early evening. Oh, it's actually almost 8 o'clock.
See, guys, the culture is so chill. Like, this is such a nice place. And like I said, it's very budget friendly. Like, I'm a little mad because I spent way too much today on food, but that's also because nothing was open. But during the week, even in Block 2 where we're staying, which is one of the more expensive parts of the city, I'm still feeding 2 people with like really good, high quality Mediterranean food for less than $10. And sometimes that's with waters and coffee. So what's this big monstrosity they're building here?
I don't know if it's hotels or gonna be an apartment building. I don't know offhand.
But see, guys, old and new. This town is a real blend of old and new. Yo, what's going on there, kiddos? It's the Cavity Creeps of the ESL game. We brushing our teeth, we saving the children's, we teaching them the Englishes, we relocating the expats to the places they probably never heard of.
We climb to make home.
The Cavity Creeps. I'll call the Crest team.
Sometimes the places you never heard of are awesome, because you would ask me a couple years ago what I had heard about Albania, and it wouldn't be a whole lot. Growing up in New York City, I grew up with a lot of Albanian people. And generally, I only really knew people who they owned pizzerias, a couple of them were barbers, and a lot of the other guys were gangsters. So, you know, it was a lot of these preconceived notions about a place like this. And then when you get here, you see it's nothing like these stereotypes you hear. It's a cosmopolitan city. It's definitely a great city. It may not be that big, but my God, it's got a lot of charm. So for you, when you came from Istanbul, what would probably be the biggest thing that really shook you as like really different? Like, because you got a culture shock obviously going to Istanbul, but then going from Istanbul to Tirana, that would have been a completely different culture shock.
The first thing was getting off the plane.
Okay.
I mean, I came from one of the most modern airports in the world. It was a year and a half old at the time.
Okay.
So their technology in that airport is, you don't see the technology. So like, you know, everything's hidden from you. And then you come here and you walk off the stairs of the plane, you're like, where am I? And then had this like broken COVID mist you had to walk through, it hit you in the face instead of anything else. And then you just like, it felt old school communism in that airport when you go through passport control, you go to your bags, like it's like, you feel like, where am I? But once I got out of the airport and started driving here, I was like, all right, it's a little really rural. But once I hit the city center, I was like, okay, this is completely different than what I first experienced getting off the plane.
Okay.
So that's why I say like Tirana is very unique, because look, when you guys leave Tirana and go somewhere else and you take the bus or whatever, you're gonna have those moments like, where the hell am I? Because it's drastically different.
So when I first got off the plane, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm on like a 20-something hour flight. I'm jet lagged out of my mind.
Yeah, you're not seeing much.
So I got there. I didn't go through any COVID mister. I found immigration to be extremely like easy and like relaxed.
But it's a very small country. It's very small, you know?
So whenever I would fly into Cambodia, I always describe Phnom Penh as like a homey feel because the airport was so small. This was even smaller than Phnom Penh, guys. And Phnom Penh is a small airport. But this one was like, it was really, really small. I got through immigration pretty quick. Nobody even had checked our bags. We just walked right in. Our Airbnb had arranged a driver for us. It cost us 16 euro. We went into Blaku, and then we basically been like trying to recover from this flight all week. So I'm still a little bit fried. I'm looking old with the bags and whatnot. But, you know, I would say, like I said, you know, sometimes you walk into a restaurant, people are kind of staring at you, you make a smile, say hello, instantly they're friendly. I have not really had any extreme culture shock. It reminds me a lot of Italian culture. It reminds me a lot of Greek culture, and growing up in Brooklyn, I had seen a lot of that. So it really isn't that unfamiliar, whereas the first time I went into Saigon and I saw like hundreds of thousands of motorbikes and just, you know, people riding their pedal bike holding a big bowl of soup in one hand, you know, delivering it, and like just all these things that were so alien to me. Or like when I was in Nepal and there was just monkeys everywhere and sadhus, and they were cremating bodies in the middle of the day. I mean, to me, Asia is a much more extreme culture shock than the Balkans so far.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's definitely different. Yeah,
this
without
is
a doubt.
easier to adjust, I would say.
Oh yeah, for a Westerner?
For sure.
You just have to deal with, all right, here's the deal. And I explain this to a lot of people. In America, we do not have a culture, because we're a melting pot, right? We don't have our own culture. It's like if you have friends that live out west, right, that didn't grow up out west, but they go out west and they live out west, they'll tell you like, oh yeah, I got invited to this Mexican wedding. It was fucking insane.
Right.
Like it never ended. Like it was like this and that. And
because
like,
they have a culture, the Mexicans.
they have a culture.
People, right.
And I say, well, you're not used to it because we don't have a culture. We're a mix. You know, we're a mix of everything.
So I would argue that our bigger cities, we definitely had a distinctive culture. Like I grew up in New York City in the 90s, and New York had a very New York vibe. Like New York City, you knew when you were in New York City.
Right, but that's a vibe, it's not a culture.
But I think it was too, because in the communities, they're melting pots, but they're melting pots that have a lot of similarities. similarities. Like we would have kids from Palestine would move to the neighborhood, and within a generation, they were Brooklyn.
Yeah, but not everybody assimilates.
Well,
that's the biggest problem with a lot of foreigners. They don't assimilate in America.
I would argue that they gentrified the culture out of America. I would say cities like New Orleans, New York.
No, I wouldn't say gentrified it out. I mean, we're still a melting pot, but the thing is, we're so socially engineered out family structure, which then destroys culture.
Oh, we've destroyed our families.
Right,
sure.
we destroyed the family structure. But now here, that's a big thing, right? So family in Asia is big. Family here is big. But we come from a culture where family was taken removed from us.
But gentrification plays a big role in that, because what you're doing is you're taking people from the decentralized suburb areas where there isn't really any kind of a town square, and you're replacing the communities that live together. And yeah, they're multi-ethnic, but there was sort of a neighborhood community vibe. And like places like New York, places like Philly, places like New Orleans, these places have a flavor.
Flavor. Flavor is not culture.
Flavor can be culture.
It's not culture though. I mean, we're talking generational, multi-generational.
Right,
we're talking like family. We're talking about. They must hit those people.
It's not thousands of years, but New York's at least what, 400 or 500 years?
New York's flavor, but it's still a melting pot. Like you're still gonna have Italian cultures, you can still have Greek cultures, you're gonna have the Jews, you're gonna have the Russians, you're gonna have the Irish.
What you're talking about is monoculture. It's not a monoculture, it's multicultural.
Right, well, yeah, because America's, I mean, look, you're a mix, I'm a mix, right? And my mixes shouldn't blend with each other. You know, I'm Ukrainian, I'm Italian.
Right.
They shouldn't really mix.
But once you get outside of places like New York, that's when I would argue have no culture. Like middle America, Walmart, strip mall society. You know what I mean? Places like Louisiana, like in Missouri or like Ohio, you know, where the society is built around the car and everybody's just going to the Walmart.
Right.
You know, that to me is a lack of a culture. But I know what you're saying, like, because Southeast Asia, a lot of these countries are monocultures. Vietnam is a monoculture. China, in many ways, is a monoculture. The majority is Han Chinese. Here in Albania, the majority is Albanian.
Yes.
Are there other ethnic groups that live in Albania, or is it all Albanian?
There is other ethnic groups, but it's very small.
Okay. What are the majority?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. But I imagine it would be people like Roma from the region. I don't know. Are there people from like Macedonia here?
There's got to be.
There's got to be.
It's got to be small though.
But it would be small. So
yeah, it'd be small.
When you come here, you are getting a very authentic, pure experience.
Because I think in those countries they have more Albanian. The opposite, more Albanian culture would be there than here.
Somebody told me that, I think it's Macedonia, that a large part of the city is actually, I mean the country itself is Albanian.
It very could be, yeah. Kosovo is the same way.
I think Kosovo's like 90-something%, isn't it? So guys, I mean, that is one of the advantages of places in Europe is like he was saying before, just the ancientness, like we just walked through a castle. I mean, that would be a bit of a culture shock. I mean, again, New York, what is it, about 400 or 500 years old? You know, this area, this is going back before the Romans. Like this, they say people have been in this area for like a millennium. You know, it's crazy, for many millenniums, you know? So you're in a really old place. And I got a similar feel when I was in Hanoi. So Saigon is kind of a newer city, but Hanoi is an ancient city. And that was one of the things I really loved about Hanoi, was how old the place was. You know, so I'm kind of digging that I'm in this part of the world, but I'm a bit of a history nerd. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting to see some of these Roman structures, these old Ottoman towns.
Yeah, every place is going to have something, whether it's from the communist era or ancient history. So like if you go to Durrës, there's an amphitheater, a Roman amphitheater.
I heard no tourists are there, nobody goes to it.
I went to it.
Really? Yeah. No, but I mean like, it's not like orchestrated tours and...
No, you just pay to go in by yourself.
Wow.
You have the free reign of the place, you just pay, I think it's 300 lek, $3.
So 300 lek, you get a Roman amphitheater for yourself.
Yeah, it's not huge,
But still.
But you can go underneath it and everything, it's not really locked off, so you can do whatever you want there.
And guys, look at the difference. There's dog parks in here. They have dog parks. They have a big open park space. I mean, how beautiful is this? Like, what more could you want in terms of a livable city? And guys, it's a European city, Mediterranean food, Mediterranean climate, but with prices that are cheaper than Thailand in some places. Like for sure, this is cheaper than central Bangkok. This is cheaper than Saigon.
Hey guys, what's going on? So we're just walking in this park here. It's really nice, really chill. Just people hanging out on a Sunday. Seems pretty packed.
This is a youth park, they call it. It's like Rihanna Reeve. That's not the right way you pronounce it, but it's youth park. And as you see over there, it's very family oriented on the weekends, so there's a huge play area for the kids. That's one thing that's kind of big here. Like you go to different pockets of the city, and they'll have areas for kids, whether they're pay play or free to play. But you know, the kids, this is all pretty much apartments for the most part around here in the city, so the kids don't really have yards to play in, so it's important to have these parks. So this is Youth Park, like I said. It has this big structure right here, which has a bowling alley, a casino in it. Now it's not like, you know, Las Vegas casino, but it's a casino. You can lose money there or win some money maybe, who knows. But it's got tons of restaurants, so it's great. Like there's a cafe area in a corner. Like I said, the dog park's over there. And we're gonna come up to this big little pool. They call it a pool, Taiwan pool. But it's really just a fountain. You can't swim in it. And also over here, we're not gonna pass it, but back to our left over here, there's actually a life-size chessboard. So you can play human-sized chess.
We saw that the
So
other day.
everybody's usually always playing it. I mean, you get some times where there's nobody there, but usually there's always somebody.
So as I'm looking around, it's a lot bigger than I thought it was. I actually thought it was a bit of a smaller city just because of the population, but yeah, it's actually pretty big. Like we've been walking around and we've been to a couple different areas already.
But it's still walkable.
Yes, still
So
walkable.
so even if like you don't get used to the bus system here really quick, because there is nothing else. It's bus, feet, taxi, bikes, electric scooter. It's the only way you're getting around.
Yeah.
The buses are cheap, they're only 40 lek, which is less than 40 cents. But you have to get used to the buses, what color they are, where they go to, what connects to what. It's just like in America, but here foreigners do tend to get confused because you're gonna look at the colors. So somebody tells you the blue bus, well, the dark blue bus or the light blue bus? Like they're slightly off a little bit, and like one blue bus takes you to one to the mountain, one goes a different direction. So, and then like there's white buses with, you know, red on them with a red stripe, and there's one with an orange stripe. Well, they don't go to the same place, you know, so you get a little confused. All right, so things are like different from like what I'm used to when I came here. I was living in Istanbul for 3 months prior, so I already had that culture shock of not being in America. But like one of the big things for a Westerner is in America, we're so used to these food stores, right? They get bigger and bigger and bigger, and how they shove everything in your face when you walk through, like the junk food, right?
Yeah.
Well, here you don't have the big supermarkets. I mean, here you have like these smaller supermarkets, and it's basically like the necessities. They have all the candy and crap too, but it's not shoved in your face like, oh, buy this, you know, cookies and buy this cake and buy that. So you got to get used to the fact that everything is smaller, and you're going to not spend a lot of extra money on junk because you're not wandering around the food store that's, you know, 20 aisles. You're in a food store that has maybe 8 aisles. You know, you just get more used to buying the stuff you need and not the extra. So you save money when you really think about it. Plus everything's healthier. But I will say this, in Istanbul, we did have more westernized food stores in Istanbul. So we had small food stores, but like they were more like bodega, like on steroids. And that'd be like a small store. Then we had very hipster stores like you expect in Brooklyn to be way overpriced, but they weren't. They were just very nice. Then they had big, huge food stores like we'd have in America. Like, you know, you get them in Southeast Asia too. Yeah. Here you don't have that. Like here, you're just not getting that.
Yeah,
so,
in Vietnam, the big one was Mega Mart, I think it was. Yeah, Mega Mart, everyone goes there. It's got everything inside, like blankets, apples, whatever you want is there. It's like Walmart, basically. But, oh, Big C they have as well. Yeah, it's the same in Thailand. But what I noticed here is like the food seems more fresh. Whereas in Asia, it's like, you kind of don't know. Like at the beginning, we used to actually shop at the local markets because we thought, oh, it's fresh and blah, blah, blah. And then Josh got really sick. So we decided to, you know, spend a little bit more money on food and go the organic Asia kind of route.
And then you stop, yeah, you're paying more money.
Yeah, paying more money. Whereas here, I don't, like, you were saying everything is basically organic.
Yeah. People will argue the fact, but they don't really use much pesticides.
That's awesome.
On a lot of the stuff. And you can tell too, when you go to like, here we have the produce markets, but here they call them the fruit stands. They don't call them produce markets.
Oh.
If you say produce, they're like, what's produce?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, the produce market on the street. But here it's just fruits. They don't even say vegetables, they just say fruit, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the quality food is just cleaner, is the best way I like to think of it. It's just cleaner.
And you eat meat, so the meat
Yes.
here compared to America, it's got to be good.
Yeah, like somebody told me, an Albanian told me that they don't buy here to stock up for like the week, like we do in America, because we're busy doing all different things, right?
Yeah.
We food shop for the week and whatever. These people here, they food shop for like 3-day clips. So they go to the butcher, because here you notice it's all butcher shops.
Yes.
Like, yes, you can go to the food store and buy some meat, but it's gonna be frozen, or they might have a small meat counter, but there's butcher shops everywhere.
Yeah.
So you buy your meat fresh, there's bakeries everywhere, you buy your bread fresh, you buy your produce from the produce stands on the street, you buy your fish from the fish market. So really, you're just going to the food store when you need water, or you want toothpaste, or you want a candy bar,
right.
or you need paper towels or toilet paper. But they also have everything else. They have fruit, they have some meat. But everybody here kind of goes to like the independent place and just collects all their stuff.
Yeah.
More like they're gathering, they're scavenging around to get what they want. So you're getting a better quality stuff.
Yeah.
In America, we overpay. Like when I left America back in November last year, cherry tomatoes were like $3.49 a pound. When I went to Istanbul, they're 65 cents a kilo.
Wow.
65 cents, and they taste a hell of a lot better.
Oh yeah, I
and
bet.
you're sitting there going, you get so mad.
Yeah.
You're not happy that it's cheaper. You're mad that you've been ripped off your whole life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told like family members like, oh, so you never want to come back? And I'm like, if I come back, I'm gonna be so mad that I'm gonna be frustrated. I'll be the guy at the town hall meetings. I'll be the one screaming and yelling, like, you're ripping us off. Like, because it's that, it's when you start traveling the world, or you find a place you like and you start to realize, well, I can live a good life, yet I'm paying so much less. It messes with your mind.
Hey guys, so we're back in Baku. So as I was saying before, I haven't been back to America for like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. So, but from what I remember, like the food just isn't as good there. Like, because it's all processed and the way that they do farming, factory farming in America, like it just never really tasted that good to me. But in Ho Chi Minh City, it's more similar to here. Like a lot of the TAs I work with, they will actually go shopping on that day. Like they figure out what they're gonna make for breakfast and lunch and dinner, and they'll go pick it up at the market that morning, and then they cook for that day, and that's it. They go shopping again the next day.
Right. Yeah, here I'd say it's like every 2 to 3 days, I would say people do it.
Yeah.
Just to keep everything fresh,
Yeah.
Because you go to the butcher shops, the meat's fresh, everything that day.
Right.
They don't have an abundance of meat at the food store, at the butchers here. So like when you go in there, they kind of like sell out throughout the day. And the idea is that what you're getting is fresh.
Yeah.
It's not sitting around.
That's why it's sold out.
Yeah.
Whereas in America, it's like always available and it's nasty.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
they don't replenish things here that same day usually. Things that sell out, and the next day it's a whole new day.
Yeah.
So like, there's some produce places though, you'll notice like the produce is old. Like either nobody's shopping there,
Yeah.
or like they just have so much that it starts to go bad. And there's other places it's always like super nice and fresh as anything. So it's hit and miss sometimes.
You gotta find the good spots.
What's up, guys? So we're just cruising in Baku. We're kind of back, not super far from where the Airbnb is. So when I first got to Southeast Asia, I was tripping. I was like going to local markets and just getting crazy, like beautiful produce. And I'm like, oh man, this is so cheap. And then after a while, I started to learn from my Vietnamese friends, the ones who were educated and had money, about the lack of food standards. And I was teaching English to this woman. She's a very wealthy Vietnamese doctor and property owner when I was working at a high-end language center. And she was telling me that one of the top things that are killing people in Vietnam is actually stomach cancer.
Okay.
And it's because of the chemicals that they use on the food, the pesticides and the things that preserve the food longer than it should be. So they're using a lot of toxic shit because there's no food standards in the country. And having come here, now there's days like today where I end up spending too much money on fucking carbohydrates, but generally speaking, the meals that I've been eating here, they're fresh. You can taste that they're just very, very, like, I don't know. Fresh is the word, I guess. Like, it doesn't taste like they're preserved. It seems like the cheese was just taken off the farm like 2 days ago.
Yeah, they don't. If you notice the food here, they don't go too crazy with like spices. They don't go too crazy with like a lot of different ingredients when they make something. It's simple, it's clean, it's based around some, for the most part, some type of meat, vegetables, cheeses. Like they love the stuffed vegetables with cheeses here. Like they just love it, you know, and bread. But it's all fresh. Like it's not crappy.
And you know, one thing that I would say that was a bit of a shock for me, and not that much of a shock, is the amount of salt and sodium that's in the food. Because in Asia, they eat a lot of salt too. Hypertension, stroke.
It's huge, yes. It's
a
huge
big problem. But here, I was a little surprised by that because they don't really have a lot of, they don't really have like spicy food.
No.
They have a lot of really salty food.
Yes.
And it is delicious, but I could easily see if you eat out a lot, having a stroke here really young, or like high blood pressure.
You got to think too, like, you know, they smoke a lot of food here. They grill a lot of stuff, so you're gonna put a lot of salt on those meats and vegetables. But then cheese has salt in it.
Right, they salt the cheese.
They eat a lot of yogurt. Yogurt has salt in it too.
Right.
So, and then they put salt on top of the salt. So it's really like crazy. And then if you're a Westerner, you go to these places and you go, wow, beer's $1 a beer or 60 cents a beer. So you start drinking beer. Well, beer and salty food does not mix.
Right.
Alcohol and salty food does not mix.
You're getting even more dehydrated.
Yes, you know, and hypertension, and you know, you're gonna get bloated, you're gonna retain water, you're gonna feel like crap in a couple of days, and you're gonna feel like crap for a while.
So guys, I wanted to point this out. This is the former dictator's house that we're walking by. This was the guy who really was not a very nice guy from what I'm learning about the history, and this was his house. Apparently it's not really being used for anything.
No,
right?
It's nothing at all, no, it's vacant.
It's not a museum, it's not, you know, it's not really serving any purpose. But it's right here because, like, I guess we should touch on this a little since we're passing it, but Blaku was the area that you had to be part of the party, the in circle, to live here. Right, this was like the in-crowd area for the people that were running the country under communism.
But I can bet you they had none of this stuff.
Right, of course. I imagine it would look very different. But that is kind of the history.
Yeah, it was their safety net. Yeah.
So Blaku it means the block, right?
Yeah, basically it's the block.
The block. Okay. So the block was the area where the loyalists lived.
It's just spelled funny.
Well, I guess it's just their language, right? I mean,
yeah.
It is spelled kind of strange. What is it?
B-L-L-O-U-K-U, yeah.
Oh yeah, that is a bit odd, but I mean, at least it's not
Yeah,
too
it's the
hard
block.
to say.
It's the block.
I've lived on some streets in Vietnam where the first year or two I probably said them wrong.
Oh yeah, you're gonna do that here too.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way it is. There's a lot of things there's a lot of words you look at and you're thinking, how can I phonetically say this? But you can't. It doesn't.
Right.
Even Google Translate cannot get it right.
Well, I learned enough Vietnamese because we had to teach us for quite a while to kind of throw out just because it has Western characters doesn't mean it's making like, you know, English sounds. You know what I mean? Like Latin sounds.
But also here too. When you go try to make a sentence, if you try to translate it through Google Translate, everybody here says you have to translate it word for word, not sentence for sentence.
Yeah, well, I'd be the same in Vietnam, and even then it might not make sense. So.
Yeah, it won't make sense, or it'll mean the opposite, or it'll mean reference to a girl, not a man, stuff like that.
Right, so it's imperfect to translate.
Yes.
But honestly, the level of English, at least from what I've encountered here, seems to be pretty high, especially amongst the young people.
Yes.
And a lot of the older people seem to be nice and accommodating. Even if they don't know what you're saying, they do make an effort to help you.
Well, it's easy to use hand gestures here, the calculator, paper. You know, they're old school. When you go to the produce, they write it down on paper. It's very old school. So, you know, and they don't try to rip you off. That's the other thing too.
Yeah,
like when I was in Istanbul, if I would go to a certain market and I was the only person that always bought, like, say, cilantro or something like that, right? They would look at me and they would tack on, you know, an extra quarter on that price.
Definitely the same in Vietnam.
Yeah, they would see me. But in the street markets, though, where it's all street market for that day, nobody ever tacked on a Western, what I call the Western price, when it came to food. Clothes, yeah, but when it came to food, no.
So, like, when I was in Vietnam, what helped me a lot was after a while, I would just start to find the businesses that I would deal with regularly, and like I picked up enough Vietnamese language to know how to negotiate. But to be honest, man, like, because of like what I learned about food standards, I stopped really shopping in the local markets and I started dealing with a service called Market Oi, and they only shop at places they can authenticate the quality of the food. So I would just have my groceries delivered to my door.
Right.
So, you know, that's why I do say that I think it's cheaper here for a lot of the foods that I want to eat. like for the kind of like Mediterranean diet or for hummus or for things like this, you know, Italian dishes, olive oil, I can get the food here a lot cheaper. In Saigon, that's considered an expensive import product.
Yes, yes.
Here it's like local food.
Well, it's like, yeah, so even in America to import olive oil, we're paying way more than you pay here for olive oil. Like when I was in Istanbul, first of all, Istanbul's olive oil is better than here.
Is it?
Oh, way better. And it's good here, but it's way better there.
Okay.
And the price is even cheaper there.
Wow.
And I was just so blown away that like, I was like, wow. I mean, in America, I'm paying $12, $13, $14, $15 for the same bottle of olive oil, and I'm paying $1.50,
Well,
$2.
we were
And you're
paying
just like,
about
Jesus.
the same as America in Vietnam. I mean, for sure.
Right.
I mean, you know, in some of the olive oil, especially if it was like extra virgin, which is what I was trying to use, is very. I mean, it's a lot, man. You know.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the culture shocks is just how much of the food that I like is so inexpensive here.
And you know, you're lucky you don't eat meat, because that's the one expensive thing here is meat.
Interesting.
Because meat is expensive. Meat, if you want to get ground meat here, it's going to cost you about the same price as in New York.
Really?
Which it's much cheaper in Istanbul because it's not really ground meat. It's like, it could be goat, it could be anything. It's good. But like here, you're actually going to pay American prices for meat.
So for sure, you know, if you're into the kind of Mediterranean cuisine, I mean, that is the local food. So you're gonna get like really high quality local food.
The one thing that they eat a lot of here is chafta, which is minced the meat. There's beef chafta, and it's like their little sausage, but they also make round ones. But that's very popular here, whether they cook it at home or they get it at a restaurant, and it's very salty.
Okay, yeah, it seems like everything's kind of salty.
It's very tasty.
I'm gonna be stepping up my my hydration game though, because it's dry heat and the cuisine is salty. So you got to flush that through your system.
Yeah.
You end up getting kidney stones like that, you know. But it's the same thing in Southeast Asia, but the diet's really, really high sodium as well with the soy sauces and stuff, fish sauces. I mean, so honestly, from what I've been having here, I think that the cuisine here is generally a bit healthier than what I was eating in Vietnam. But I think a lot of the Vietnamese food is very healthy too. The problem is though, a lot of it's doused in MSG. So there's MSG, there's a high sodium content, and a lot of times you got to be a little bit suspicious of what's in the food.
Right.
You know, like, and I've eaten places, man. I had street frogs. I had frogs on the side of the street that they were cooking in congee, which is like, it's basically like a rice oatmeal with like Singapore sauce, and it was kind of cool, but I ended up having like crazy stomach problems.
Wow.
I'm not seeing like, it seems like even at like decent sit-down restaurants here is not that expensive. The food is pretty fresh.
Yeah, and you know the tricky thing, you know the one rule of thumb for foreigners always is, when you're in a foreign country, eat where it's crowded, where the locals eat, right?
Same in Vietnam.
But the problem here, is so many places are good, they're just empty, that sometimes you're gonna take a chance on them. Like the place I met you at today, it was empty.
Right.
Because it was a Sunday. But you took a chance on it and you enjoyed what you ate, right? It was expensive.
It was good, but it was very expensive.
Right, and I wouldn't even consider that expensive.
Right.
I mean, you guys spent, what do you say, 26 for two people for lunch? I mean, to me, you know, for me to go out and spend, you know, $80 for a meal here, I consider that expensive for two people. But
we've been eating for two people for $10 here.
Right, you can do that. That's the thing. And in Istanbul, you can do it even cheaper than that.
And
it's crazy.
It's very clean food.
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing. You can get what you want, and it can be clean, and they're accommodating too, especially if they speak English. Very accommodating.
all right, guys, so that was some of our observations. Chris has been here a lot longer than us, so he's been able to make a much deeper impression on what he sees as different from where he came from. Because we haven't lived in America in a really, really long time, we can really only compare it to the places we've been recently, which is in Southeast Asia. And I would say that for me, I see a significant improvement in my quality of life if I stay in this country.
Yep.
You know, my business is doing very well in Southeast Asia. I have a team working for me in Southeast Asia. We're putting together stuff over here, so look for stuff me and Chris are going to be doing together. There's a lot of positive stuff on the horizon. And I wouldn't say I experienced any extreme culture shock. I have not been here as long as Chris, so I'm still kind of like, don't know where things are, don't know how things work. Chris has been here for a bit longer, and he's been able to give you guys a little bit of an idea of some things he found different coming from where he came from. You want to add anything to that before we wrap it?
Yeah, first thing, check out my channel. It's Cris4tay. It's CRIS, the number 4, TAY. I do interesting videos about Tirana, so if you want a different take than the norm, as far as everybody comes here, goes to the same touristy sites, I kind of do things a little different. Just give you more of like a you know, a real aspect of it.
He
you know?
wouldn't be chilling with me if he was normal.
Yeah,
so you can just forget that nonsense.
Yeah, I try to keep it real. No fake stuff. I'm not looking for companies to sponsor me. And but yeah, the culture shock, I would say the only culture shock here was, since I'm a single guy when I got here, was the dating scene. You know, coming from Istanbul for 3 months, there was very little social life for a Westerner.
Right.
And that was the biggest structure. I loved the struggle. I loved the city. Love Istanbul. And it's cheaper than here.
Right.
But if you're a Westerner, good luck.
Right.
Good luck dealing with the culture. Good luck dealing with dating people there.
Wow.
Whereas when I came here, the first thing I realized was how friendly people were.
They're
Within the
nice.
first 2 hours, 2.5 hours, just walking around by myself, I realized that there was much more English spoken, which is that's not the case in Istanbul.
Right.
You can, so sure, you have much more modern infrastructure, but you have to say, do I have a social life?
Sure, sure.
So if you want to come live somewhere and you're going to say, all right, I'm going to sign a year lease, right? Or even if you just do Airbnbs for a couple of months,
Sure.
right? And you test the water. Can you go out and hang out in Baku? Can you just wander anywhere you want to go? Yeah, you can do that here. I mean, sure, just like anywhere else, there's some places you might not want to go to as a foreigner for the
Right.
fact that, A, they're not going to speak to you in English because it's traditional music or whatever's
Sure,
going on.
sure.
But if you just want to wander into a bar, a cafe, or sit there by yourself and strike up a conversation with somebody, you can do it here.
That's what I'm saying. Even when you first see people, even if they're kind of looking at you and they don't know what to make of you, as soon as I smile and I'm, hey guys, it's instantly nice.
And
instantly cool.
The fact that you're an American really goes a lot further here. Whereas, like, you'll notice it as an American when you come here. You'll notice when you talk to people, they're interested in you.
Right.
They're interested in knowing, because then they always have a relative in America. And if you're from New York, they're like, oh, I have a relative who lives here, lives there. And it's like, you become kind of friendly with them, and then you can go back, you can eat at those places. And like I said, even if the English is not that great, you still can have that bond. And you know, it's become so comfortable here. Every American I know that I hung out with here, that we spent time together, every single one of us all said, I could see myself staying here because everybody's just so friendly.
Well, that was a big part of why I left Saigon. Like, the people are fantastic. I have great Vietnamese friends, and from jiu-jitsu I have great expat friends, but I just got, like, it's very hard to see people because the city's so big. So sometimes you just can't be fucked. It's like 42 degrees, there's a lot of traffic and pollution. Maybe your friend lives 40 minutes away on a motorbike.
That's far, yeah.
It can be very stressful to go see the homeboy if the homeboy is like a 40-minute ride in crazy traffic.
It's funny you say that, because I was originally, before I left when I left America, I chose Istanbul because of COVID issues.
Right.
And my original plan was to go to Southeast Asia. My friend lives in the Philippines, so I was going to go to Manila for a while, but I wanted to set up shop in Thailand and then Vietnam. That's how I knew about your
He
channel.
knew about me already.
So, because I had researched for years. And the funny thing was, when I was looking at apartments in Manila before COVID with my friend, so he's telling me, okay, I live here, you know, and he's like, these are the good areas. I knew about the good areas in Manila. But he's showing me like where he lives to where I wanted to live. And I'm looking at Airbnbs, and I had money to spend for a nice place, but he's showing me where he lived, and I'm like, dude, like, how far is that? He's like, well, you have to get like a grab bike or a grab car to get to this train station, to get to here. Then I'm about a 10-minute walk that way to that area, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, dude, I'm coming to hang out with you, but I don't want to live, I want to live over here, right? And then I'm like, man, it's like 40 minutes to an hour to hang out with you.
And
that's crazy.
That was the thing. I work online. I'm very busy. I'm managing a lot of different people's lives, and it's hard for me to go out sometimes because I'm just so caught up with the business. I'm always you know. And everyone would have to come to me, and I would feel bad because I want to see the homies.
Right.
But then I always like, I don't really have time to get on the bike for an hour. And here, guys, we just walked across like almost like not the whole city, but we walked across a
we walked.
stretch.
Yeah, we did, and it just goes to show, like, we can walk, and we were walking very slow because we're filming. But if you got a bike, a scooter, or just your feet, you can hang out with anybody you want here. And if you learn the bus system, you just hop on the bus and take it certain blocks and then jump off again and go walk the rest. It doesn't really matter. And taxis are not super cheap, but if you're just going from like one place to another, $2, $3.
You really can't beat that.
You can't beat it. So, and no matter where you live, you're always gonna find a local grocery store.
Right.
So it's like my friend lives in the Philippines, and even though he lives in a nice high rise, this and that, to go to the food store and go food shopping, it's either they have to trek with like those luggage bags,
right?
Or they have to get a cab,
right?
Because it's hot and they got to carry all this crap, and they're like, I'm like, damn, I gotta do that. Like,
that's why we were using the delivery services. They bring it right to my door, you know, just a lot more efficient. Because when we first moved there, bro, you can't get nothing in the same place. So we would have to go to like 6 places to get groceries. And sometimes one's like 5 kilometers that way, 4 kilometers that way. So once I discovered the delivery services, it was like, whoa, what a difference. But then you're never fucking going outside. You just are in your shit all the time.
But no matter where you live here in this city, in Tirana, in the city area, we just call this all the city center because, like I said, once you get outside the city center, it's a little less developed.
Right.
No matter where you go, you're going to run into a food store. Like this place here is Jangoli. It's a food store right here. This one's going to be brand new, it looks like. It's not even open right now. But there's like a well center that's kind of like a CVS in America, right? There's pharmacies on every corner. Right. There's butchers on every block. There's produce stands on every block.
You don't need to go very far.
You don't need to go very far. No matter where you live in this city, you're not going to have to go very far to get everything you need.
So we're going to wrap it, guys. I want you guys to check out Cris4tay. Very cool guy. Very, very unique content. He's not one of these little travel bloggers who's only showing you the tourist stuff. He's taking you off the beaten path. I definitely suggest checking out the video Beyond the Square, where he actually shows you like some of the outskirt areas of Tirana. A real look at like what it's like to be in the lower income brackets of Albania. So it's a very interesting video. And so far, guys, if you're Albanian, you're watching this, we're really impressed. It seems like a fantastic country and we're excited to spend time here. And if we like it, maybe we'll stay and make it a base of operations, because so far it seems like a really nice place and I think we're both really enjoying the energy. What do you think of when you think of Albania? I think of opportunity. I think of a country that's open. I think of a country that wants long-stay expats, that wants people to come and invest, wants new ideas, and is looking towards the West. I think that Albania is a beautiful country with incredible landscapes that can offer a very comfortable lifestyle at a very reasonable price. We will help navigate your journey to becoming an expat in Albania. We're working with some of the top lawyers. We can help establish businesses. We can help you get your residency. We can help you get real estate. We can arrange almost any contact that you might need for the process of moving here in almost any city in the country. We will simplify the process. We'll make it a lot easier for you to move to a country that maybe in the past would have been more of a challenge. With our help, it's going to be a walk in the park.
Brush your face and wash your teeth, son.
Hey, what's up? I'm D from Canada. Hook up with the New York Nomad if you want a smooth ride into Vietnam or any Southeast Asian countries.
Hey, my name is Aaron. Get in contact with the New York Nomads. If you want to get into Vietnam, hit them up. They'll get you in securely and professionally.
Yo, this is Uncle Hollywood. I'm telling you right now, the New York Nomad got me a job. He's legit. Hit him up. Check him out.
New York Nomad set me up in Vietnam.
Yo, my man got me a job. Come to Vietnam.
Hey, what's up, guys? You thinking about coming to Vietnam? You're not sure where to start. You've heard a lot of things online. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. We offer a consulting service where we help you get on your feet in Vietnam. We give you advice on negotiating contracts with employers. We help you with real estate agents, visa agents that are reliable and that you can trust. We help you get started in this amazing country and get on your feet. We help you get into different opportunities that might be more difficult for you if you were just landing in the country on your own. And we help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems that you could have as a newcomer here. We provide you with reliable job recruiters, visa agents, real estate agents, and advice. If you guys are thinking about coming to Vietnam, hit us up for a consultation. We'll help you get started, help you get on your feet, and hopefully you'll love Vietnam as much as we do.